Okay, let's talk about power. Not some abstract idea, but the real, concrete power that shapes the daily lives of over a billion people in India. Today, we're diving deep into the engine room of Indian democracy, the legislature, the people who officially make the rules. I mean, just think about that for a second. It's a huge question, right? In a country this massive, this diverse, how do you even begin to get everyone to agree on a single set of laws? Well, that complex, kind of fascinating process is exactly what we're going to break down. So, the answer to that big question starts with the nation's rulemakers. These are the folks who have the incredible responsibility of taking the call of democracy, all our voices, and turning it into something real. And that answer is the legislature. Now, it's super important to remember this isn't some faceless group in a faraway building. No, it's a body made up of people chosen by you, by us. Their whole job is to take what we want, what we need, our collective will, and write it down as the law of the land. They are quite literally supposed to be our voice. So, how does that actually happen? How does your single vote, cast in your own neighborhood, become a voice that helps make laws for the entire country? Well, it all starts with the foundation of democracy itself: elections. Just look at this map. It really gives you a sense of the sheer scale of this whole thing. This isn't just one giant election. It's like a mosaic of hundreds of smaller ones all happening at once. Each one of those little shapes on the map is a community, a region, a single building block of our democracy, choosing its local champion. And the official name for one of these building blocks is a constituency. You can just think of it as an electoral district. Everybody who lives inside that specific area votes to pick one person to go and represent their interests in the big legislature. So how many are there for the national parliament? 543. That one number tells you so much about the effort to make sure that every part of this huge country has a seat at the table. Right, so from each of those 543 areas, we elect one member of parliament, an MP. They all come together to form the Lok Sabha, which you might know as the House of the People. And this is the group that debates, argues, and finally creates the laws for the whole nation. It's an incredible journey from a single vote to a national law. Making laws and running the government is a massive job, for sure. But the legislature has an even bigger power, a power that lets it actually edit the nation's blueprint itself. And this is a total game changer. We're not just talking about traffic laws or tax policy anymore. This is the power to change the fundamental document that defines what India is, what its values are, and what rights its citizens have. It's an absolutely awesome and honestly kind of scary level of power. Now, this incredible power isn't just assumed, it's spelled out in Article 368 of the Constitution, and it's very specific about what Parliament can do: add new things, vary or change what's already there, or repeal, which means completely remove parts of the Constitution. It's basically a built-in tool for evolution. But here's the clever part. Not all changes are treated the same. The people who wrote the Constitution created two different paths. For some things, like creating a new state, you can use a simple amendment, which is basically like passing a regular law. But for the really big stuff, the core ideas, you need a special amendment under Article 368, and that requires a much, much higher number of votes. It's a built-in safety lock. Okay, so that brings us to the most important question of all. We've established that Parliament has this massive power to change even the Constitution, but is it limitless? Is that power totally absolute? And this image here really tells the story. On one side, you have the people's vote, creating the legislature. But then you see the judiciary acting as a check, a guardian, making sure everything stays within the lines drawn by the Constitution. This creates this really interesting and absolutely crucial tension in our democracy. And believe me, this tension wasn't just theoretical. This timeline shows a real constitutional tug of war. For years, Parliament and the Supreme Court went back and forth. Parliament would pass an amendment and the court would question it. This all led to a massive showdown in 1973, and a case that would change everything: the Keshavananda Bharati case. Wow, just read that sentence. This one line from the Supreme Court's ruling sent absolute shockwaves through the entire system. It was a clear statement. Yes, Parliament, you can amend the Constitution, but that power is not unlimited. There are some lines you just cannot cross. And that ruling gave us what we now call the basic structure doctrine. It's a really powerful idea, this notion that the Constitution has a soul, a fundamental core. We're talking about things like democracy itself, secularism, fundamental rights. The court basically said that Parliament can't use its power to destroy this core identity. The impact was just massive. First, it made it crystal clear that Parliament's power has limits. Second, it set up the judiciary as the final referee on what that basic structure actually is. And most importantly, it created this amazing balance. The Constitution can still be flexible and change with the times, but its core principles are rigid and protected from being tampered with. So, where does all this leave us? Well, it's not a simple story of a winner and a loser. It's the story of an ongoing, sometimes tense, but always vital dialogue that keeps the Indian Constitution a living, breathing document. You know, in the end, this constant push and pull isn't a flaw in the system. It's actually its greatest strength. It's this very tension between what the people want right now and what the Constitution stands for always. That's what forces it to be a living document, not just some dusty old book on a shelf. This image of the scales of justice really says it all, doesn't it? On one side, you have the power to change, to reflect the will of the people, and on the other, the need to preserve the timeless values at the heart of the nation. The whole goal is to keep those two things in perfect, delicate balance. And this is why it all matters so much. This dynamic balance is what allows India's democracy to grow and adapt to whatever comes next, without ever losing sight of the fundamental principles of liberty, equality, and justice that make up its very soul. So, I'll leave you with this thought to chew on. In this incredible democratic dance, who really has the final say? The will of the people expressed through their representatives, or the soul of the Constitution, protected by the courts? You know, maybe the real answer is that the final word is never actually spoken. The dialogue just has to continue. Thanks for tuning in.